Most watches tell time. These tell everyone you've made it. We're talking about tiny mechanical machines, some with hundreds of moving parts smaller than a grain of rice, assembled by hand over months, sometimes years. Watches that cost more than houses. Watches that get passed down for generations and only go up in value. Watches that aren't really watches at all. They're wearable art, status, and engineering on a microscopic scale. This is the top 10 best watches in the world. Let's count them down. Number 10, Omega. We start with the most famous achievement in watch history. In 1969, when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, the watch on the astronaut's wrist was an Omega Speedmaster. It's still the only watch certified by NASA for spaceflight. It survived tests that destroyed every other brand. To this day, it's called the Moon Watch. Omega is also James Bond's watch of choice with the Seamaster. And here's why it makes the list. It's the one brand here that's actually attainable. A piece of genuine horological history for a few $1,000s instead of a few $100,000. Every serious collection starts somewhere, and it usually starts here. Number 9, Cartier. Cartier is design royalty, and they basically invented the men's wristwatch as we know it. Back in 1904, before wristwatches were even a thing for men, an aviator named Alberto Santos Dumont complained to his friend Louis Cartier that he couldn't check his pocket watch while flying. So Cartier built him a watch for his wrist. That became the Santos, one of the first purpose-built men's wristwatches ever made. Then came the Tank in 1917, its shape inspired by the tanks of World War I. It's been worn by Andy Warhol, JFK, Princess Diana, an absolute icon of design. Cartier doesn't chase the biggest complications. It wins on pure, timeless style. Number 8, Jaeger-LeCoultre. Here's the insider's pick. In the watch world, Jaeger-LeCoultre is known as the watchmaker's watchmaker. Why? Because for decades, the other legendary brands on this list, including the most prestigious ones, quietly bought their movements, the actual engines inside the watch, from Jaeger-LeCoultre. They are that good at the fundamental craft. Their signature piece is the Reverso from 1931. It was designed for polo players who kept smashing their watch crystals, so the entire watch face flips over on its case to protect itself. Almost 100 years later, it's still one of the most elegant watches ever made. Number 7, Breguet. To understand why Breguet matters, you have to go back over 200 years, because this brand basically invented modern watchmaking. Abraham Louis Breguet was the genius of his era. He invented the tourbillon, a spinning mechanism that fights gravity to keep time accurate, and which today is one of the most prestigious complications a watch can have. He invented innovations still used in nearly every luxury watch made today. His clients: Marie Antoinette, Napoleon, royalty across Europe. Wearing a Breguet isn't just wearing a watch, it's wearing the origin story of the entire industry. Number 6, A. Lange and Söhne. Everyone thinks the best watches come from Switzerland. The Germans would like a word. A. Lange and Söhne from the tiny town of Glashütte make some of the most beautifully finished movements on planet Earth. Flip one over and the back is a work of art. Hand-engraved balance bridges, German silver plates, finishing so precise that collectors buy them just to stare at the back. Their signature watch, the Lange one, is considered one of the greatest watch designs of the modern era. This is the connoisseur's brand. If someone knows what a Lange is, they really know watches. Number 5, Richard Mille. Now for the disruptor. Everything before this was centuries of tradition. Richard Mille tore that up. Founded barely 2 decades ago, Richard Mille builds watches that look like they belong in a Formula 1 car. Skeletonized movements, exotic materials like carbon and titanium, so light you forget you're wearing them. And the price? These routinely cost between $500,000 and $2 million. The wild part? Tennis legend Rafael Nadal wore one while playing professional matches, swinging a racket with $1 million on his wrist. They're the favorite of athletes, rappers, and billionaires who want everyone to know it. Love them or hate them, nothing else looks like a Richard Mille. Number 4, Rolex. Of course it's here. Rolex is the most recognized luxury brand on earth. The crown is a global symbol of success. But Rolex isn't just hype. They pioneered the first truly waterproof watch, the Oyster, back in 1926. They built the tool watches that went up Everest, to the bottom of the ocean, and onto the wrists of every icon you can name. The Submariner, the GMT Master, and the legendary Daytona. How legendary. Actor Paul Newman's personal Rolex Daytona sold at auction for $17.8 million. A steel sports watch. And try walking into a Rolex dealer and buying a popular model today. You can't. The wait lists run for years. Rolex turned a watch into the hardest reservation in the world. Number 3, Vacheron Constantin. Now we enter the Holy Trinity, the 3 most prestigious watchmakers in existence, and we start with the oldest. Vacheron Constantin has been making watches continuously since 1755. Let that sink in. They were crafting timepieces before the United States existed, over 250 years, without ever stopping, and they don't just coast on history. In 2015, Vacheron unveiled the reference 57260, the most complicated watch ever created, with 57 separate complications packed into a single timepiece. It took 3 master watchmakers 8 years to build. When you wear a Vacheron, you wear the single longest unbroken tradition in all of watchmaking. Number 2, Audemars Piguet. In 1972, the entire luxury watch world was turned upside down by one design. Audemars Piguet released the Royal Oak, and it broke every rule. It was made of steel, not gold. It had an octagonal bezel with the screws left visible, and it was priced higher than gold watches of the time, which everyone thought was insane. The designer, Gerald Genta, supposedly sketched it overnight. It was a scandal, and then it became one of the most important watches ever made. The original luxury steel sports watch, the blueprint that everyone else copied. Today, the Royal Oak is so in demand that getting one is nearly impossible. A P took a gamble that nearly bankrupted them, and it turned them into a legend. And number 1, Patek Philippe. There was never any doubt. Patek Philippe, founded in 1839, sits at the absolute summit of watchmaking. It's the brand the other brands measure themselves against. Their philosophy is summed up in maybe the most famous line in luxury advertising. You never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. They make the most coveted watches on earth. The Nautilus, the Grand Complications, timepieces with hundreds of parts that chime the time like a tiny cathedral bell. And they hold the ultimate record. In 2019, a single Patek Philippe, the Grandmaster Chime, sold at auction for $31 million. The most expensive watch ever sold. A Patek isn't a purchase. It's an heirloom, an investment, and a piece of art that happens to tell the time. This is the peak. Nothing sits above it, so there it is. The 10 best watches in the world. Centuries of craftsmanship, millions of dollars, and engineering so fine it's measured in fractions of a millimeter, all wrapped around your wrist. Which one would you wear? Drop it in the comments. And if you want to see the watches so rare and expensive that money alone can't even buy them, subscribe, because that one's coming next.